So this past week, there was a lot of rage, a lot of anger going to Undertaker saying, is Taker being bitter? Is he being an old man? Is he right? Is he wrong about the product? Well, we're going to talk about it. So, as you guys don't know or know by now, Taker did a podcast this past week with Joe Rogan, and I do like Joe Rogan as a podcast, but Joe Rogan didn't help himself in any glory either because his wheelhouse isn't talking about wrestling, and he doesn't really know much about pro wrestling. Like, he could have talked about, like, asked him more follow-up questions on why do you think the product's like bad or soft in his eyes. Like, you could have done it a lot better, the interview, and he should have worded better, like, and then he would have could have said like, oh well, he would have pointed out things like, oh, the wrestlers are too quick in the ring, they need to slow the fuck down, which is something that I've been saying for years, that these wrestlers, especially if you go to an AEW or even I would say more AEW, and I've been telling them this, like, slow the fuck down. Like, the hard cam is supposed to be capturing you in the ring, and you're being too fucking quick in the ring. Slow the fuck down and actually build up your stuff and have some substance to your stuff. That's what Taker should have said. Like, he should have said, like, actually, the wrestlers of today actually need to actually, um, need to actually learn how to fucking work safer, because some of these wrestlers cannot fucking work safe. Like, they're flipping around, diving around, trying to get a reaction because ultimately they cannot get over. So he could have said something like that, which made it better. But he said that it's gonna piss a lot of people off that he said that the product is soft and stuff like that. And he said that he left on his terms. A bit questionable about that, Taker, that you left on your terms when you should have left at WrestleMania 28, but you held on for a bit too long. And even you, Taker, would admit that deep down that you held on way too long near to the end of your career. Then and then the first thing is that he talks about how he thinks that everybody in the wrestling business is entitled and that they have something. It's not just about the wrestling business. He's talking about that kind of like a whole world thing. That he's saying that it's just a whole world thing. It's not like you looking like any job you have. There's always an asshole that's going to be ahead of you thinking that he's entitled and he's supposed to be there and he's not made it. So stuff like that, and it's just a kind of a world thing. It's a society thing. Like, people think they're entitled to stuff, like entitled to cars and flashy whatever. So the whole thing of that is not just the whole thing of wrestling. And Taker, not everybody has to go sleep. Why would you want somebody to go through an experience that you had, like sleeping in your car, and stuff like that? Like, all these wrestlers, guys and girls, all had their different challenges going into the wrestling. Look at Alexa Bliss with her eating disorder she had. So they had their different challenges. It doesn't make you any more manly or any more womanly to have them. You know what I mean? Like, it just was kind of a stupid comment that he did. But and then he talks about the locker room mentality. How back in his day there was like real man and people would have knives in their pockets and shit like that. And then now this video games, like, Taker, why would you mention video games? Like, I would understand that a lot of these wrestlers, you could have said it like, okay, like, back in my day, all these guys were actually men, and we stood up for stuff, and we would actually stand up to the boss. But obviously, in today's WWE, they're like, oh no, Vince, we're not going to actually stand up to you. We're going to just bow down. It's kind of same like with a Twitch thing, like, um, like you could have made an example like when Twitch channels when Vince tried to take over the Twitch profits from the wrestlers. Like, he said that he could have said like the wrestlers maybe could have been a bit stronger and united together over the Twitch thing, which he should have done. I said that in my video, but he said the whole thing about video games. Like, why you could say that you don't get video games because it's not your era, Taker, but the fact of the matter is, video games, you could have, like, let them play video games. Like, at least they're not, getting high or drugs or killing themselves early with drugs and stuff like that. Like, there's a different era back then. Like, Taker, you was wrestling and drinking and stuff like that in your era. Like, this is when they're playing video games and stuff, and let them do what they're doing. And he says like they're too busy wearing makeup and stuff. Like, you wore makeup for 3 decades. Like, I don't get that. And then the final bit of this was basically, he was talking about like there's not many badasses in the wrestling business, which is like which is true. Like he's right, like, on a handful of things. Like you could say like, oh, there's Joe, Lesnar, Strowman, kind of those kind of guys. But if you look at it, kind of everybody's kind of looks the same. They kind of all act the same. They talk the same. Um, Nobody's ever different, and that's what he could have maybe done. It, and Joe Rogan didn't help himself. He could have done better folk questions, like I said. And then the final part is he's saying like Triple H is trying put the toothpaste into the tube. So he's basically trying to get that old mentality back of like when he was wrestling, like making some other stars. And then he says that basically there wasn't many star power left when he was getting older, like him, Austin, Triple H, and Shawn all aged out, and there wasn't that older guys to help these younger guys, so the younger guys had to work with other younger guys to help them get over. So I agree with that. And the whole thing about the last part he said about this interview was about the internet. Is that everybody is being like talking, like trying to promote themselves on the internet and stuff like that. And that's the biggest problem on the internet. You know what the biggest problem is on the internet, especially in the wrestling world, is every single one of these wrestlers, if you say an opinion that is either below the bound or even on boundaries, that they get triggered or block you. And if you're not tweet fucking them or fucking saying, oh my god, great match, I've just bought your merch, and giving them fair criticism, because they'll say you've not worked in WWE or you've not worked in the wrestling business. You don't have to work in the wrestling business to give an opinion. You're giving your fair criticism as a fan. And these wrestlers are too sensitive, they're too insecure, and that's why they fucking block people. Look at JBL, who came Taker from your era, who was a real man, blocking people because people challenge him on things or actually talk about the product. Look at Goldust, another guy who came from your era. So all these people that came from your era are getting triggered, and then you look at all these fucking websites, all these fucking goofy ass websites. Like I never known like a wrestling, like the wrestling world to get so triggered over things. I know it's a world thing, but like come on, this is like 2021, and these wrestlers are so insecure. They cannot take criticism. If you're not sucking these guys off, then you're basically gonna get blocked or stuff like that. And then you have to followers like block this guy, block this guy. But yeah, this is my quick thoughts on the whole Taker podcast thing. Leave your thoughts, guys, in the comments, and I'll check you later. Peace.